All right. So I talked to a lot of you guys in the DMs and stuff like that, and I know it's very controversial. A lot of people don't like it when I talk about Al Mohler on the channel, and just is the way it is. And because I think that Al Mohler's style is a very good avatar for everything that's wrong with typical Big Eva stuff. Yeah, I definitely do think that. I think that Al Mohler is one of the most skilled Big Eva practitioners out there. I don't think he's wrong about everything. I think he's very good on some issues and things of that nature. But yeah, I don't think he's a positive influence on the church anymore. I think he was in the past, and I think that ship has sailed. I don't know exactly when it sailed, but his stuff these days is just very unhelpful. It's just the kind of thing that's like, it's so official that it's almost worthless. Like you could tell, I could tell you what Al Mohler's opinion is on just about anything, and I'll very rarely be wrong because he just typically takes the official thing, the official position that you're supposed to take in order to stay. He calls it intellectually honest, but I would call it in order to stay invited to the cool kids table, to stay invited to the cosmopolitan parties, to be one of those conservatives that people will put up with and that they'll tolerate. And you'll never be accused of being a fundy, really, by anybody. They don't really like you. Maybe you're more fundamentalist than some, but you're still invited. You're still allowed to be participating in the official, cultural things of the time. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. You're never going to get kicked out of a party for believing what Al Mohler believes. And what I'm talking about today is on yesterday, he did a podcast about the election. And I didn't listen to it because I don't listen to Al Mohler's podcast. I just don't find it helpful in any way. But I heard a lot about it, and here's the transcript. This is a transcript that's a quick transcript, so some of the actual words might be a little bit off, but I just wanted to read the basic premise here for what he has to say about the election, because he definitely wants to push this idea that, look, Joe Biden won. We need to deal with it. I know you saw very shady things with your own eyes. I know that data people have looked at the statistics and say, this is impossible what we're seeing here. Like, this is mathematically impossible what's being presented to the people. I know there's all kinds of issues, and I know that there's lawsuits and stuff like that, but deal with it. Joe Biden has won the presidency. He's president-elect. And if you don't call him president-elect, then you are being intellectually dishonest. In fact, let's just be honest. Like, when somebody says you're being intellectually dishonest, that means that you're bearing false witness. That means that you're lying inappropriately. And so what Al Mohler is putting forward here is that if you don't believe and enunciate that Joe Biden is president-elect, then you're actually in sin, right? If you don't accept the fact that Coretta Harris is the vice president-elect, then you're actually a sinner. You need to repent. That's actually probably satanic to some of these people. I know that that's what Joe Carter would say. That's a conspiracy theory. That's satanic. Coretta Harris, of course, is president-elect. She's amazing. But yeah, that's a pretty interesting thing, given how obvious some of the fraud and some of the inconsistencies and irregularities are. They need to be explained, right? Obviously, they need to be explained. But no. Not according to Al Mohler. He says that Joe Biden is president-elect. Here is what he has to say. Everything's official. One of the basic issues comes down to how we handle the results of the election. At this point, the results are becoming increasingly clear. You are looking at a remarkable election. You're looking at an election that indeed did reveal a deep and abiding partisan ideological divide. You're also looking at an election that has turned out millions more voters than had ever voted in such an election before. It's best if you use a robot voice, because this is probably produced out of a machine. As a matter of fact, Donald Trump got millions of additional votes in 2020 over what he got in 2016, winning the White House. Yet, inevitably, it appears that he has lost the White House, and thus, increasingly, it is becoming a matter of intellectual honesty to refer to Joe Biden, the Democratic candidate, as the almost certain president-elect. What I found particularly interesting about this whole thing is that one of the reasons why he says this, that it's so clear, it's so obvious, it's increasingly clear. In fact, it's a matter of intellectual honesty. Don't bear false witness. Love your neighbor. This is a gospel issue. One of the reasons why he says this is because of the legitimacy of the Associated Press, the AP. And actually, the AP is interesting because that's one of the reasons why on election night we were so suspicious, because the AP was engaging in all kinds of weird gamesmanship that was apparent to every honest observer, that we were like, well, what's going on? They're not calling Florida. It's so obvious he won, but they are calling Arizona. It's like, this is all crazy. But apparently the AP is like the pinnacle of reliability. Listen to this statement here. He says, "As I explained a week ago today, the Associated Press has been calling elections and thus naming a president-elect all the way back to the year 1848. To say the very least, that's a very long time, and not once have they had to reverse their declaration because they're not reporting on polling, even exit polling. They're actually reporting on the results that are coming in from the polling places across the United States." So you see, the Associated Press is reliable because they've never steered us wrong in the past, and they're not going to steer us wrong anymore. That's why it would be a matter of intellectual honesty to agree that Kamala Harris is the vice president-elect and sleepy Joe Biden is president-elect, allegedly, and all of that kind of stuff. It's a matter of intellectual honesty. So you see, he grounds this in the reliability of the Associated Press because they've been reliable since 1848. And see, this is the thing, like a Christian shouldn't be this naive. Obviously, listen, just because somebody's been reliable in the past, if they're obviously lying to you in the present, you shouldn't believe them. Like, you should take their word with a grain of salt if they're obviously lying to you. Like, if somebody has said for years that the sky is blue, and ever since he was a little kid, he's told you that the sky is blue, and now he's 67, and he says, "Hey, AD, look outside, the sky is orange." Like, you don't go, "Well, you've never steered me wrong in the past, I guess the sky is orange." Like I get, I suppose if it was night, evening, and the sun was going down or something like that. But you know what I'm talking about. Like that's not how we do this, right? Like if the AP is obviously lying to you, if the AP is obviously in the tank for Joe Biden, like we don't necessarily need to take what their word is because they're actually not in the Constitution. The AP is not in the Constitution with the duty of declaring to us who the president-elect is. Like even if they call Kamala Harris, whatever, Coretta, whatever her name is, the vice president-elect, that's not necessarily so until it's so, right? Because there's a lot of work we need to do between now and then, right? But no, not according to Al Mohler, because he believes the official thing that you won't get kicked out of the latest dinner party, the coolest dinner party for evangelicals for believing. No. This is the facts. It's the deep ideological divide. The country's divided always, of course, and Joe Biden, of course. Like it's just so pathetic. But I was interested. I was interested in what the AP thought about, basic things that, probably if you go back to 1848 up until like maybe last year, they probably believed one thing, and yet they're now changing in year 2020. I just was curious. I was curious to see if there was anything else like that they're, doing a little bit of a reset, a little bit of a rebrand. And, the AP has been a stalwart of truth since 1848. And so I wondered if the AP was going to, talk consistently about complicated things like elections and politics. I wondered if they would also likewise be as consistent about very basic things that even every kid knows. Like, for example, the fact that ladies have vaginas and men have penises. Well, let's find out. The AP style book. This is, I guess this is not 2020. This was 2017. But, the whole 4 years of the Trump administration is basically when everything changed. Here's an article by Brooke Sopoliza. In its latest edition, the Associated Press style book, a widely used reference for journalists, is embracing the use of they as a singular pronoun. Quote, "We offer new advice for two reasons: recognition that the spoken language uses they as singular, and we also recognize the need for a pronoun for people who don't identify as a he or a she," Paula Froke, lead editor for the AP style book, announced at the annual American Copy Editors Society conference on Friday. Froke did stress, however, that they as a singular pronoun should be used sparingly, adding it's usually possible to write around that. Genderqueer advocate Jacob Toiba, who uses gender-neutral pronouns including they, welcomed the decision. It's an important
step forward for gender equality and feminist empowerment. Because of this change, transgender and gender nonconforming people will gain greater respect and dignity in the media.
Interesting. So, Al Mohler, it certainly seems like they're confused. The great AP that was probably recognizing the fact that there were only two genders, and if you were a boy, you had a penis. If you were a girl, you had a vagina, for probably centuries. And now, recently, in the last couple of years, they've changed their minds in order to, I guess, be more affirming. I don't really know. It's definitely not because of what's true. It's essentially to move the revolution forward. But I guess so. Something simple like gender, they don't quite believe the same thing. But I'm sure that they're reporting on the elections the way they're supposed to, because that's what I have to believe in order to be a respected member of society, I guess. Like, this is the thing, guys. Al Mohler is not equipped and not willing to be tarred and feathered for the cause, for the truth, for the Lord. Let's just be honest. Like, he's going to agree with everything up until the point where he doesn't think he can keep his conservative bona fides intact. And then he will regrettably believe what's supposed to be believed by a Christian. He'll do it very tenderly and regrettably, and he'll apologize for it. But he's not going to be the guy that's going to take the bold stand and say, you know what, you're saying not to sing, but I have to sing unto the Lord. I'm not scared of COVID. I actually fear God more than I fear COVID and more than I fear you, Governor. We're going to freaking sing at our worship services. He's not going to be that guy, because you can't believe that in our society and maintain an air of respectability. And to be honest, it strikes me that people like Al Mohler care more about being spoken well of in the marketplaces than actually doing the right thing. And so that's why, if you listen to his opinion on this election and say, well, it's a matter of intellectual honesty, the AP's never steered us wrong in the past, and they're not going to steer us wrong in the future, you'd have to be crazy. I would suggest not doing that. I'm not saying Al Mohler's the worst guy in the world. I'm not saying he's wrong about everything. But these kinds of controversial cultural issues, he's probably the worst guy that you could follow at this point. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. God bless.